Good evening. I'm calling the Monday, July 9th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first thing on the agenda tonight is the approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have any requests for changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Weber and a second by Commissioner Higgins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Moving on, the approval of minutes from the meeting held on Monday, June 25th, 2018. Do I have any requests for edits? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes of June 25th.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Higgins and a second from Commissioner Weber. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on, it looks like there are no public hearings tonight. Looks like we're going to a planner's report. Julie, would you like to take that over?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this evening we're going to have our second discussion covering chapters of the Draft Aspire 2040 Eden Prairie Comp Plan update. This evening we're going to be covering the Community Facilities chapter, as well as Mr. Bourne will give a presentation on the Parks chapter. Both of these chapters are required elements of the comprehensive plan update required by the Metropolitan Council, and there are specific pieces of information that need to be included in those chapters as a part of that required document. Again, this evening we're having an overview of those chapters where, in order to familiarize the commission with the draft, answer any questions that you might have, take any comments that you might have. It is a working copy, so if you do find grammatical errors or things of that sort, know that staff is reviewing that and is providing comment to the consultant in order to finalize and polish up the draft, if you will. If you have any questions or comments through my presentation, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. I'm happy to answer any questions. So this evening, as I said, we're going to be covering the Community Facilities chapter. It is a required element of the comprehensive plan update. Community facilities, of course, are very important to the community overall because they contribute to the quality of life and provide necessary services. You'll see as we go through the presentation, the Community Facilities chapter is not focused only on city community facilities, but other non-public or other public entity services as well. So community facilities also provide gathering spaces for events and organizations, again providing that sense of community, which is so very important. And this chapter provides an overview, as I said, including non-city facilities. By and large, this chapter provides an overview of what community facilities exist, gives a little bit of a brief description of what those community facilities do or provide within the community, and then also promotes interagency collaboration and coordination in order to maximize partnerships and benefit for the overall community. The goals and objectives that are provided in this chapter at a high level work to provide adequate services and facilities to protect and maintain health, safety, and welfare of all of the citizens and visitors, and also to provide for the operation and use of public and private property in the city and for the protection of public and private property. So for instance, you see a photo there indicating police and fire. So for instance, one of the objectives of the police and fire services is to maintain communication within and with those departments in order to ensure that there's adequate staffing and resources in the appropriate locations over the long term in order to serve the needs of the community. As I mentioned earlier, the Community Facilities chapter also works to develop partnerships that are mutually beneficial, so that is meeting with the school district over the course of the year to understand what their needs might be in the short as well as the long term. It may mean meeting with other community organizations that whether, as I said, it's the school district or Hennepin Technical College, other public entities within the community that may have needs that we can work to address or that we can collaborate with in order to meet some of the objectives that the city has. Also, providing communication with our residents, whether they are corporate residents or residential residents, in order to understand what their needs are in the long term. The community center, for instance, is a community facility. We want to be talking with our residents to make sure that as trends emerge, services at the community center evolve as well in order to meet the needs of the changing demographic or just new activities that might be popping up and be more commonplace. So some of the facilities that are reviewed in the community facilities chapter include the Eden Prairie Library. There's a short description about how that facility came to be, size, location, things of that sort, as well as services provided, and includes a brief discussion about the planned renovations for 2018-2019 to serve the long-term needs of the community. Yes, Ann?
I have one quick question. Have you heard anything more about the timing of the changes at the library? I was there a while ago, and staff had been told, I guess, but I don't know what has happened since, that there's been a delay. Is there a delay, or is it simply that, I don't know if we know what the detail is on what their schedule is for renovations and so forth?
Commissioner, Chair, members of the commission, I know Hennepin County representatives were present at the council meeting a couple of months back, not too distant past, and there was discussion about that project moving forward late 2018 and into 2019, and I believe the construction time frame was roughly a year, maybe a little bit more.
Okay. And you haven't heard any changes to that?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, no, I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Educational facilities are also covered in the community facilities chapter. So educational facilities include not only the independent school district, Eden Prairie schools, but as well as private schools that exist within our community, and Hennepin Technical College. Of course, there's some coordination already that occurs between the city and most of those entities, but continuing that partnership and open communication is promoted through the comp plan language. Public safety, such as fire department and police department, of course, are covered as well. There, again, a brief description of the staffing levels, as well as some statistical information with regard to crime rates and fires are included within that document. And as you can see, there's a handful of city facilities, the city center, senior center, outdoor center, community center, art center, and by and large, the overall goals and purpose of this language is to talk about maintaining open communication, as I mentioned earlier, with the city's residents and identifying emerging trends in order to ensure that all residents, regardless of their age, income, or ethnicity, have opportunities to participate at all of these facilities. The other piece that is mentioned in the community facilities chapter is the heritage sites. The city does have a handful of heritage sites. Some of those are designated on the National Historic Register. Some of those are locally designated. They have been a priority for the city over time in order to preserve and maintain those gems, if you will, within our community, and making sure that that preservation continues. So there is also information about criteria and identifying locations of where those heritage sites are at within the community, funding sources as to how those can be maintained and preserved over time. With that, I'm open to any questions that you might have. It's a fairly brief and straightforward chapter, and if you don't have any questions, Mr. Bourne has a presentation on the Parks chapter.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the commission? No? All right.
All right, thank you, Julie. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, like Julie had mentioned, I'm going to quickly go over the Parks and Open Space chapter, or the draft chapter of the 2040 plan. This and the previous plan was actually part of the community facilities chapter, but decided this time around we wanted to separate it out, really call out some of the new theming and stuff like that that we wanted to include in this draft. And so one big thing with our 2003 Park and Open Space Master Plan, we had a goal of having a park within a half mile of every resident in the city of Eden Prairie. And with the completion of Cedar Hills Park, we actually finished that. We're able to get that done. And so a lot of this chapter is now, how are we best utilizing the space that we already have, the parks that we have? So we want to make sure that we're expanding and enhancing kind of what different activities are available at the parks. Trying to, like Julie had mentioned with a lot of the facilities, trying to see what the new trends are, what new sports are coming up or what new activities are coming up that may need additional space. So one of the ways that we'll look at that is there maybe a decline in one sport or one activity that had been had available the majority of a park? Can we scale that back now and make room for cricket, for pickleball, for a lot of these other new sports that we're seeing the popularity really come increase in Eden Prairie? And then we also want to continue to partner with all of our watershed districts and other government agencies to make sure that our water quality in our lakes and streams and rivers are being maintained or enhanced. We want to make sure that boating is still a fun thing to do in Eden Prairie, that our swimming beaches remain open, that fishing, paddleboarding, whatever you want to do on the lakes, that we're continuing to kind of expand that and improve that in our area lakes. And so another part of the chapter is the trail and park connectivity, making sure that everything is accessible to our residents.
May I interject
Yep.
a question? What about continuing aeration approaches for some of the stagnant lakes that have had E. coli contamination?
Yep, so currently the city does 3. So we do aeration, or we control aeration systems at Mitchell Lake, Red Rock, and Round Lake. The watershed does Rice Marsh, and I believe they had kind of toyed with the winter we had. We had quite a bit of snow and ice, covered more than usual, that they had looked at Duck Lake, and so I know they're monitoring that as well. But yeah, it is something that we're doing currently, and if we need to expand, we definitely can.
Has there been a study of a visible aeration system within the center of the lake? Is Round Lake's aeration system based on that back pond?
Nope. Round Lake's system is a little bit different than our others. Round Lake is actually, it's a diaphragm or a bubbler kind of right in the middle of the lake. But we do it a little differently at that lake, where we actually over-oxygenate it. We run it all through the fall, and then once we start to see ice cover, then it turns off. And we've had really good success. That's kind of the way we've been doing it. I would say at least 20 years, 15 years, a lot longer than I've been here, and it seems to be pretty effective. So getting back to trail and park connectivity, like I said, we want to really make sure that our parks and our open spaces are accessible to all residents. So we want to continue to develop our trail system and make sure that we're connecting kind of those key amenities within the city, whether it's a park, a school, a commercial area, whatever people would be walking or biking to. We want to make sure that they can get to that in a safe manner. And then we also want to partner with Three Rivers Park District to ensure kind of all their plans they have for the regional trails, regional parks, that if they're getting to a certain area, that we've got facilities then to connect to those and get people kind of that last little bit, whether it's back into a neighborhood or into a shopping area or into a business park. So working with them on that. The other one is enhancement and expansion of our environmental assets. And so we're blessed in Eden Prairie with with the river bluffs, a lot of wetland areas, a lot of lakes, like I had mentioned before. So we want to continue to find those sensitive areas and acquire them or help protect them in some other manner, especially steep slopes, wetlands, floodplains. We've got a lot of property kind of throughout the Purgatory Creek area, the Riley Creek area, that we want to make sure there's still some areas there that we can hopefully acquire or protect in some way. and expand kind of our facilities through that. And then the other big one is with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife with the Minnesota River Valley. There's a lot of land down there as well that, you know, as they've kind of worked through and gotten control over certain parcels, that whether it's cost sharing or, you know, doing some other programs that we can help them out to make sure that that's preserved. We also want to expand our access kind of where appropriate in these areas. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of great kind of creek valleys, a lot of bluffs that we want to make sure that we make that accessible to our residents with soft surface trails, nature trails, lookout areas, making sure that we're not encroaching in those areas too much and damaging them, but also let them be enjoyed. And so the last is our program that we've been doing for about 5 years now is finding the underutilized areas of turf that were put in some years ago that really aren't being, you know, played on or have sports activities, that we're converting those back into native planting areas, using a lot of pollinator-friendly plants, being a little bit more environmentally sensitive to those areas, and kind of bringing back some of those, bringing back the prairie to Eden Prairie.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yep.
The last statement said to support private owners that want to do the same. Could you explain
How they,
Yep.
how you provide support?
So currently we do have, through the Public Works Department, we have some rebate programs that if somebody wanted to come in and do something that would help stormwater or kind of do a conversion, making sure that we can either partner with them or making sure that our city code allows those type of areas. We've had some questions whether, you know, those are allowed under our tall grass and weed ordinance, making sure that all that kind of stuff aligns. And really, if residents want to do this, we're allowing them to do it, but kind of pointing them in the right direction and how to do it best and that type of stuff. So,
Matt, how does the city envision promoting connectivity between neighborhood developments and the parks that exist? For example, as you know, Mitchell Lake, we have the tunnel under 5
yep.
that affords access for the townhome population on the other side. But I'm thinking about a place like Elam Shores with a great number of elderly people, some people who are still ambulating, people in wheelchairs. How would they access Round Lake? Or conversely, people from that northern section coming south, given the state of our highways at this point in intersections?
And so that may be a better question for when we go through our transportation plan, because that specific intersection was kind of a special area that we looked at. A lot of those, what we call barriers in our our multimodal system, we looked at those, and trails and kind of more of the transportation type trails are covered pretty heavily in the transportation section. So, not to kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, but it is something that we're definitely looking at, and how to best make it safe access, because we get a lot of phone calls too from Elam Shores that are trying to get to Walgreens or the grocery store, or like you said, up to Round Lake. So it is something that we're looking at. So then moving on to environmental education opportunities. This is something that we've really tried to expand in the last few years, and want to make sure that we're keep expanding kind of the opportunities in our partnerships. So really with the school district, we have a lot of these, like I said, the nice conservation areas. They utilize the outdoor center quite a bit already, but where can we expand to get kids out of school and actually get them into nature to help them, you know, learn how to be environmentally sound and those practices, and kind of live with the environment and really have that hands-on experience in our parks. So, and then also continuing to partner with the watershed districts and other environmental commissions and organizations for that same type of educational opportunity for adults. Just because you're not in school doesn't mean you stop learning. So we get a lot of phone calls of people that want to come out and do a certain type of session. And like I said, with the conservation areas and stuff we have here, why not go out to Richard T. Anderson and do a nature walk with an instructor and kind of point out the different plants and the different ecosystems, that type of stuff that we have right here in Eden Prairie. And lastly, the public art is another thing that we've really been working on in the last number of years to expand kind of what we offer and what's out in our parks. And so we want to make sure that we continue to integrate artwork into parks and trails to create kind of that enhanced recreational experience. You can see in the picture to the right here is one of actually our irrigation boxes that was just kind of an ugly, rusted green box that put a mural on it and looks a lot better than what it did before. So finding ways like that you can subtly introduce art into the parks and kind of, like I said, get that better aesthetic appeal to some of these areas. But then also expanding our partnerships and grant opportunities with local artists to actually put sculptures and that type of stuff throughout our trail system within our parks. We've got a few that we've actually installed this year, one at Purgatory Creek, one at the Outdoor Center, and one at the Art Center that we got through a grant that are going to be rotating sculptures throughout the parks. So looking for ways to keep adding that into our parks to get that enhanced experience. And then also incorporate interactive art displays in play areas. This is something that we've started to do, but really want to expand as well. So,
Do we have a minimum percentage of a capital project for Eden Prairie that we have to invest in art?
so we don't have a minimum, but that's a good question. That's something that we can maybe start to do. We've been trying to find ways with like bike racks with different play components, trying to add that aesthetic appeal, but I think that's something to definitely look at, having an actual art component of our budget. Any other questions?
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
So at our next meeting, we'll be covering the economic competitiveness chapter and the chapter that focuses on the special area studies for the Martin Drive and Crosstown Industrial Area, for those of you who are looking ahead.
Great. Thank you. All right. Moving on, any members report this evening? Continuing business, new business, adjournment?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Higgins and a second by Commissioner Weber. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.